I am the problem. At least according to liberal and progressive doctrine, it's me. I am to blame for the problems of America, and frankly, all the problems the world has ever known can be laid directly at my feet. So say the enlightened ones. It's not because I make too much money or not enough. It's not because I take government handouts. Not because I'm addicted to drugs or have any violent tendencies. It's not because I smoke or anything else. It's all because of just one thing. I'm white. And therefore, according to Joe Biden and all the other far-left socialists running around in Washington, it's me, and anyone that looks like me, that is to blame for everything that has ever gone wrong. And unless my kind are kept in check, it will be the end of freedom, democracy, and, of course, America. None of that is true, of course, but that is the next big talking point, and we have heard this before lots of times, haven't we? But that doesn't make it any more true than it was back then. It's also a clear indication that the left keeps seeing polling numbers for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and realize that they are in very serious political peril. In fact, one might say it looks like the ship is sinking right alongside the feeble president's failing poll numbers. So, how desperate are the Democrats? Well, the shooting in Jacksonville has become just about the only thing they're talking about lately. They are shrill and screaming about white supremacy and how it is the biggest threat to the nation, and that it's far more pervasive and prevalent than anyone actually realizes. Of course, that's all false as well. It's been over 160 years now since Democrats got together to create this thing called the Ku Klux Klan. More than 100 years since the Klan reached its heyday during the administration of President Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, and one of the most openly racist presidents of all time. In fact, he ranks right up there with the openly racist Lyndon Baines Johnson, another Democrat. But it was Wilson that screened the racist film Birth of a Nation at the White House itself. Make no mistake, Democrats don't care much about factual historical accounts of what their party really is and always has been. They don't want to talk about Democrat Governor George Wallace, another outspoken racist who ran for president on the idea of segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever. All to keep blacks and whites in America separate and keep the black population in its place. Of course, the Democrats now claim falsely, of course, that at some point the party switched. This is the dumbest thing. There's so many dumb things with the Democrats. This is one of the dumbest things. The party switched at some point, you see. Really? Does that mean Ronald Reagan was a Democrat? Richard Nixon, too? Was JFK actually a Republican? Of course, that premise is ludicrous, but it always has been Republicans that have led the charge to fight for equal rights for blacks and, frankly, all Americans in this nation. And everyone should know that by now. I mean, the party was created to end slavery. Which part did you miss in class on that one, lefties? How about a refresher course? Democrats wanted to keep black people enslaved so badly they caused a civil war that cost 600,000 Americans their lives. The North fought to end the practice and save the country. President Dwight David Eisenhower was the man that sent the National Guard to Little Rock to enforce the federal law of allowing black students into previously all-white schools. And Eisenhower was the president who signed the first major civil rights bill into law in 1957. He did so with the backing of Republican senators in large part, not Democrats. But history doesn't matter, and neither do facts in 2023 Democrat politics. White people evil. White supremacy is going to destroy America. It's an existential threat. No, it's not. The Southern Poverty Law Center, this could date me back a few years, probably 20 years ago now. I was working for NBC News in Columbus, Ohio, and they asked me to do a story on the Klan in Ohio at that time. It might have been 22 years ago. At any rate, it took me 6 months to find any member of the Klan. I went to the Southern Poverty Law Center, a long since discredited organization that labels just about anybody as a hate group, Catholics included, and, and nuns. So I searched high and low, and I found two people, and I interviewed them, and there were very few. At that time, the Southern Poverty Law Center could not identify 10,000 members of the Klan in this nation of more than 300 million people. It's not exactly a pervasive problem, and it has not exploded in popularity either, I can assure you. But again, it's not just politicians wrapped up in these lies. There are many members of the media that apparently have never read World Book Encyclopedia like I do, or any actual books about American history. In fact, they can't even get recent history right. They just regurgitate the same old trite and false allegations about conservatives and Republicans to advance the leftist viewpoint. Strange but true. And the absurdity of the wildly overstated threat of white supremacy. But some reporters are just too ignorant to get off that losing topic that is alienating millions of Americans as we speak. Listen to this doofus. Go.
Thanks, Mayor. Does the White House see any connection with the changes that the Florida governor has made in teaching about African American history to the kind of violence that we saw in Jacksonville?
The president has been very clear, again, in the piece he penned this morning, and I think probably more so in action, his actions last month in working to establish the monuments to Emmett Till and maybe Till Mobley, of course, recognizing, commemorating the sad event of his murder, but also recognizing the courage of his mother in making sure that she helped light the fuse that set in action.
Does a balanced curriculum in Florida education lead to violence like this? Why don't we have the manifesto from the transgender killer in Tennessee that murdered Christian children at school? You know, they want to take this manifesto from this guy and say, oh, he's a white supremacist. There are bad people all over the place. To try to manufacture and grind that into some sort of movement is absurd. It is truly sad when so much ignorance gets so much exposure in the media. No wonder millions of people in this country are just so ill-informed.